Africa has the highest youth population globally. And we look at this as a positive matter. Africa is central to the UN Water Conference, and I'm happy to be here in Rwanda to speak about this, but also to meet my colleagues and friends.
How do we mobilize greater funds for infrastructure in the water system?
We are talking about the future, and every future flows from water.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for gracing this occasion. Thank you for joining us at EAMG TV. And this meeting comes at a very crucial time when we're talking about water. Probably we don't talk much about water because we feel like it's just a basic need. But you lead the UAE's diplomatic efforts on energy and sustainability, and also that includes the country's water file. And also I see you are on the board of the Mohammed bin Zayed Water Initiative. And from your experience, why has water become such an important strategic issue currently?
First of all, thank you for having me. I believe water is a cross-sectoral element. It has implications on very important topics such as economies, security, but also, as you said, it's a basic need and human right above all. The efforts that the UAE is undertaking is due to the fact that we truly realize how important is water. As you know, at the end of this year, the UAE will be hosting the United Nations Water Conference. And it's co-hosted by, or the uniqueness of this event is because it's a South-South-led event, and it will be hosted in Abu Dhabi from the 8th of December to the 10th of December. We've run a super inclusive consultations. And we found out that one of the main objectives is to elevate water where it truly belongs and shed the light on it as an important element and basic right, as you highlighted earlier. So Africa plays a central role on what we do, apart from Senegal being a co-host with the UAE. We have still additional four African countries that are leading as co-chairs the main 6 interactive dialogues that we will be undertaking during the conference.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. And I want to take you back to talking about water. Why do you think the world should see water as more than a basic need?
Because water, as I said earlier, affects or have a direct implications on so many important elements. If we are to speak about national development and economies, for example, let's take one sector, agriculture, for example. Agriculture is a sector that is labor intensive. So if we are talking about creating jobs, agriculture sector in general, apart from the food security importance part of it, it's a huge sector in creating jobs. But if there is no water, then this sector is affected. So we're not talking only about a basic need for human lives. We're talking also when it comes to enabling countries. If you take another sector, such as peace and security, and that's purely political, the water element has a direct implication on that. Today, there are multiple rivers that go in crossing borders. So transboundary as a matter is very important to peace and security in terms of sharing this precious resource between member states. So I just gave 2 examples, but it goes far beyond this. We can speak about climate change, we can speak about investments and FDIs, we can speak about, but above all, I like always to wrap it up by saying it's a basic human right to everyone.
You've spoken about jobs, and that is something that I realize that 62% of employment in sub-Saharan Africa is linked to water-dependent jobs. And what does that number tell us about the cost of water insecurity and also about the opportunity in solving this matter?
Look, today, I think it's undeniable fact that water is the main enabler for prosperity, and it's the main enabler for any, or a backbone element for any successful economy. Having said that, multiple continents or multiple countries, some of them are rich with water resources and some of them are not or lack, or maybe live in a geography that lacks water resources. Hence, technology plays a significant role. Going back to your question about security, I think it's clearly water security. Not only when we speak about security, we don't speak only about the security of the availability of water for the same country, but also you should look at it from the aspect of neighboring and resource sharing among member states. So it is one of the elements that important and should be discussed at a high political level. But also in terms of the availability of water within countries, today the UAE can be taken as a great example, where we live in a very harsh environment, but we rely on technologies to satisfy our water and basic needs. So technology is the solution, and we are a country that believes in that. And by today, we have a state-of-art infrastructure. Our infrastructure is supported by artificial intelligence. Today, we are amongst we've reached a long time ago, actually, 100% accessibility of water for our citizens and our population in the UAE. But now we are also utilizing the technology, specifically the artificial intelligence applications, on how we can be more efficient on utilizing water, but also generating and transmitting water within the UAE.
When we talk about water insecurity, now it's very important to make sure we put in measures to curb this water insecurity. Do you think it can be a tool for creating employment for other people, especially the youth, when we're solving the issue?
I think it's something that pushes another, right? Yeah. So looking at Africa, for example, since I'm happy to be in Africa and Rwanda specifically, Africa has the highest youth population globally. And we look at this as a positive matter, because youth are the driving force for any successful country, continent, or even economy. And we go back to the example of agriculture and food security. That's a sector that relies on water, but also technology massively. But at the same time, that sector requires water. So it's security, and under security, I would say political security, but also food security, creating jobs, and that supports the economy. And when you create jobs, you secure the youth and their participation. One of the things we've done for the United Nations, the UAE have done for the United Nations Water Conference, we launched a program with UNESCO for hosting 100 youth, put them into a program in order for them to participate at the United Nations Water Conference in December. We want to make sure that their voice is heard, and we want to make sure that they are not attending for the sake of listening, but they are part of the discussion and they have a seat on the table.
All right. Thank you so much. And coming back to Rwanda, the UAE is already supporting water infrastructure here in the country that is linked to the Karenge water treatment plan through the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development. And what does this partnership demonstrate about turning water priorities into practical action?
Allow me to start by saying the relationship between the UAE and Rwanda is a great relationship. And it's a like-minded, the thinking is similar here. Rwanda values water, the UAE values water. So this was a testament, or the fruit, if you want, between the bilateral relationship between the UAE and Rwanda, which is a project that, my understanding, currently is under construction and ongoing. And because both nations understand the importance of water, here we are deploying one of these projects here in Rwanda. But we want this to serve as an example on how great bilateral relationship between two countries like the UAE and Rwanda can be fruitful in addressing an important subject such as water security elsewhere as well.
Is the UAE probably thinking of duplicating a similar program in other countries across Africa?
The UAE has a huge portfolio of projects in multiple sectors. Water is definitely one of them. And again, we just mentioned the example in Rwanda, but also when it comes to renewable energy, when it comes to water, when it comes to food security. We have these partnerships spread into 6 continents, not only in Africa or a specific continent. But again, this is who we are. We are firm believers on great, successful partnerships, and water is not an exception. If you take energy or renewables, for example, we have almost 70 gigawatts spread in 6 continents in over 45 countries around the world. So this is who we are. We believe in great friendship and partnership for the sake of public good for both nations.
All right, thank you so much. And also you've been involved in mobilizing green capital. How do we mobilize greater funds for infrastructure in the water system?
Today, the multilateral development banks have a significant role to play. The multilateral development banks are actually earmarking certain amounts for and specifically dedicated for water. Accessing these funds has certain criteria. Countries need to be responsive to these criteria in order to have access to that capital. There are multiple initiatives on the table today. One of them is actually led by the World Bank, called Water Forward. We're working closely also with the World Bank on boosting such initiatives in water. And it's not only concerned with infrastructure, it's concerned also with generating water, infrastructure part of it, but also distributing it at member states in different locations. So capital is important, but also another thing the multilateral development banks needs to be mindful of is basically how they can de-risk the access to that capital on member states, because the problem is huge. The financial gap in the water sector globally today quantified at $6.7 trillion globally. And in order to fill this gap, such efforts needs to start, but also to continue and need to be widened and get bigger. And that's part of the objectives that we aim to accomplish at the United Nations Water Conference, where we bring different partners into the table: member states, financiers, the MDBs and the banks, and funds, but also the private sector that will utilize the funds in order to develop these projects globally.
Thank you so much. Now, let's go back to the 2026 UN Water Conference that will be happening in Abu Dhabi this December. And my question is, why is this conference particularly very significant at this point?
Because the statistics or the numbers are actually shocking. We're talking about 2.1 billion people don't have access to safely managed drinking water. 2.1 billion people. The numbers are shocking. This is the 3rd United Nations Water Conference in 50 years. And at its heart, the UN Water Conference 2026 in Abu Dhabi will be focusing on implementation. There were enough talking happened. Now what we need to focus on is implementation in order to create a tangible outcome that is affecting human lives. And as I said earlier, Africa is central to the UN Water Conference, and I'm happy to be here in Rwanda to speak about this, but also to meet my colleagues and friends who works in the foreign offices, but also in the water sector.
And why is the African leadership central in this, or to this conference?
For us, we know that Africa is the land of opportunity. There is a lot of water projects can be deployed in Africa. Of course, if the stars and the conditions, if the stars are aligned and conditions are met. But also we understand that the African nations have a direct and great relationship with water, be it being on the coastal side, but also at the inner side of Africa with all these rivers that can serve for public good as well.
UAE and Senegal are thinking of getting solutions and getting success after the conference. From your own perspective, what will you consider the clearest signs of success when the conference ends?
If we The focus, as I said earlier, is the implementation. We want to convene the world in Abu Dhabi to come and talk about how we can make a legacy after the United Nations Water Conference. We want to see projects, we want to see partnerships, we want to see policies formed in order to respond to the water issues that everyone globally now is witnessing and looking at. This is our intention, and from here I can say the UAE will do its part, and we are committed on advancing the water agenda globally, not only at the projects and partnership sector, but also at a multilateral level. The UAE is committed to the water agenda globally. We will definitely do our part. We are ready to partner and help and support as much as we can. But again, as you know, this is a party-driven process. It's not a sector that a country or two or three or even 10 can impact and solve. That's why we're bringing the international community along with other partners such as the finance sector and the private sector in order to leave that conference with tangible outcomes.
Okay, and the message of the conference, of the December conference, is every future flows from water. That is what I gathered. And looking beyond December, what future is the UAE seeking to help build through the 2026 UN Water Conference?
The UAE, since inception, it's something we inherited from our founding father, the late Sheikh Zayed, the father of the nation. We know he taught us how important is water. And since then until today, we are continuing down that path. The UAE launched in January through Abu Dhabi Fund for Development, the Abu Dhabi Global Water Platform. We committed $2 billion to invest in water. But also, on the other hand, we are committed to the technology part of it. The Mohammed bin Zayed Water Initiative is a testament on how important is the technologies in the water sector. We launched the Mohammed bin Zayed Water Initiative before the Abu Dhabi Global Water Platform in 2024. We're at its heart focusing on coming up with a desalination technology that is sustainable, scalable, affordable, and deployable, with the merit not only to utilize it within the UAE, but also to utilize it outside the UAE. So these are commitments the UAE have undertook already, but definitely there will be more after the 2026 Water Conference. But these are examples.
All right. We have over 2 billion people in the world who do not have access to clean water, and we don't talk so much about water. What should be done for people to acknowledge the importance of water?
We believe as a host country of the United Nations Water Conference, we've run a very inclusive consultations before the UN Water Conference. And one of the things we found out is the fact that everyone realizes how important is water, but very few are actually doing something about it. From that aspect, the UAE worked with partners such as Rwanda and of course Senegal as a co-host and other member states to agree on the areas on where do we need to focus. Ultimately, these 6 areas are the 6 interactive dialogues that were adopted last year in consensus at the General Assembly in New York. These interactive dialogues are 6. They will be featured at the UN Water Conference in December. And the main objective is to address these 6 interactive dialogues, but ultimately to shed the light on water as a subject for everyone to understand how important it is, everyone to understand how big of an enabler for successful economy it is, but also to create opportunities for partnerships. This is how we see it, and this is how the UN Water Conference will be shedding the light on water and how important it is in order to move the needle and change these numbers and make them better.
All right, thank you so much. And probably lastly, as we end, the people who are affected by water insecurity, part of these interactive dialogues that will be happening during the conference?
The international community are all invited. It's a United Nations conference, so by default they are invited. Member states will be participating. speaking out their minds. Everyone has a seat on the table. Everyone's views are actually welcomed. This is what the water sector needs, and this is how we are treating it.
Thank you so much. I think that is a beautiful way to end it. And the conversation tells us that when we speak about water, we are talking about the future.
We are talking about the future, and every future flows from water.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.